Hey folks, today I want to talk about a new feature in .NET 8, and that is the Blazor component result. This is a new class that allows us to return the result of a Blazor component in a minimal API or even an MVC controller or Blazor page. But when you pair it with minimal APIs, it's very powerful. Let's look how it works. So here we have my minimal API routes. So for example, we have this contacts route. And this just simply gets routed to one method. So every route gets routed to one method. Our contacts goes to our list contacts handler.render method. If we come over here, you'll see it is telling it to render the component list. So here's our list component, and that is just displaying an HTML table with, displaying all our contacts in our app. This is like a contact management app. But if we come back here, this component method is just something I made. But here you see our Blazor component result, where we pass in our component type that we want to render. In this case, it would be our list.Blazor component, and then the data that Blazor component accepts. Now, usually Blazor components, they're, when used in Blazor, they're pretty complicated. You're using all your lifecycle methods to alter data, and you have like submit handlers and things like that. With this setup, you're not using any of that. The only thing your Blazor components do is accept some data. I'm just accepting, like in this instance, a model containing all the data I need to render on this view. And then all your logic is just contained in what I'm calling handlers, which is what the minimal API router routes to. So the handlers is where all your logic resides, instead of in the Blazor or the Blazor lifecycle methods. It's a very simple and straightforward setup, but it's extremely powerful. So let's go ahead and just kind of check out the app here. We'll put some debug statements in. Okay, so if we come over to our page routes, and we'll do this one, and then we'll go ahead and set up some debugging on our create handlers as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and refresh this. We are currently on the /contacts page, which, as I said before, just displays a list of contacts. It gets routed here to this render method, which renders the list component and passes in our model data, which is just the a list of our contacts from our database. So now let's go ahead and add some data. We click on the contact/create link here, the add contact. It gets routed to this create contact handler render method, and it's going to pass in our create contact form, which is just an object containing the data we need to create a new contact. And it also has our data annotations for validation. So we'll go ahead and let that load. All right, so we're on our form now. So as I said, we're using data annotations for validation. So when I hit this create contact to submit the form, it's going to come here. Minimal APIs will route us to the save contact method, and we'll go ahead and validate our data. If it has errors, we will just return the same form that got submitted and re-render the create component, which is the form we see on the page. So, and as you can see, all our validation is displayed. And mind you, all of this is done without full page reloads, because we're using HTMX in combination with minimal APIs and Blazor components. So if I come over here to our network tab, and let's refresh this page. And we'll go ahead and delete all our breakpoints so you can see this in real time. Okay, so let's go ahead and just type in my name, but we'll leave everything else blank. If we hit create contact, HTMX will do a fetch post request to the server Our minimal API will route it to our handler, which will do our validation logic, say this is no good, and re-render the component. And as you can see, we're just getting a response of HTML, which HTMX then updates the DOM to. So very simple, straightforward stack here, but it's extremely powerful. So let's go ahead and just actually add a contact. So okay, now let's add another one. Okay, so now we have two contacts displaying in our list. Something else HTMX does for us that works perfectly with Razor components and minimal APIs is filtering data. So we have a search form here, and this search form will call the contact/search route, and this will come to our /search method on the list contacts handler, and this is going to search our database for contacts. What we'll send the name to the server for whatever the person put in to search on, and then we'll apply that against our database, get a list, and then this time we won't re-render the entire page component. We're just going to re-render the actual table. So if we come over to our list page, you'll see here we have a contact search table. And if we come in here, this is the actual table where we're looping through and displaying all our contacts. So let's go ahead and if we check out the HTML on this search box, you'll notice we have a couple different HTML attributes. First is this hx_get. This is telling HTMX to make an AJAX call to the contact/search. And then our trigger is a key up delay of 500 milliseconds when the data changes on this input text field. So whenever I type in this input text, after I stop typing, 500 milliseconds later, it's going to make that GET request to the contact search. So if I type in WES stop, we're going to come to our contact search route here, get routed to our list contacts handler.search method, and then go ahead and filter our data, and then re-render not the entire page but just the contact search table. Go ahead and continue that, and as you can see, we're filtering our data. So you can do all kinds of things like this. Very, very powerful. The last interesting thing I'll show you is on the home page. I have a little section here for polling. So with HTMX, you can set up, as I just showed you with the input text field, you can tell it to do AJAX calls to the server based on, when someone stops typing in an input field. You can also tell it to do AJAX calls to the server just on like on an interval. So if I come over here to my home Razor component and I scroll down, you'll see I have an hx_get call to the random-number URL, but I'm telling it to do it every 2 seconds. So if I come back here, you'll notice our number gets updated every 2 seconds. And then if I come to my network tab, you'll see we're just pulling the server. HTMX does all the heavy lifting for us. It calls the minimal API route, which gets directed to our handler method, which, in this case, we're just generating some random number in this random number component. Or, I'm sorry, in the home handler here. We have this random number method, which generates a random number and then passes that off to the component to re-render. HTMX slaps it into the DOM for us, updates everything. And this isn't a very useful scenario that I'm showing you, but if you have an app, or maybe you have some background jobs running and you want to periodically check the status and display it for the user, you're really just adding a route, a method, and then slapping on the HTMX attributes, and you can create very powerful features with very little work. So this is a stack I'm pretty excited about, and I'm going to keep exploring. But thanks for checking it out. Peace.